Good evening. We begin Sky News at 10 with breaking news. India says its military has struck 9 targets in Pakistan and in the disputed region of Kashmir. At least 3 people are reported to have died. India's Ministry of Defence says it targeted militants it blames for an attack in Kashmir in which 26 people were killed last month. Indian officials have stressed that no Pakistani military facilities were targeted. But in the last few minutes, Pakistan has threatened to take revenge. Well, just to reiterate the story, India's military has released a statement. It says, a little while ago, the Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Sindoor, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan. And Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, from where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. Altogether, 9 sites have been targeted. Our actions have been focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. No Pakistani military facilities have been targeted. India has demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and method of execution. These steps come in the wake of the barbaric Pahalgam terrorist attack in which 25 Indians and 1 Nepali citizen were murdered. We are living up to the commitment that those responsible for this attack will be held accountable. There will be detailed briefing on Operation Sindoor later today. Let's bring in our world presenter, Sky's Yalda Hakim, who has been following this story. And in the days leading up to this, Yalda, there was an expectation that this attack would happen.
That's right, Gillian. As you say, things really escalated and ramped up between the 2 countries following the terrorist attack in Kashmir on the 22nd of April, where 26 people were killed, 25 Indian nationals and 1 Nepali citizen. They were there as part of tourism. Kashmir has really opened up in the last few years, and the Indian government has been encouraging people to travel to Kashmir as part of a tourism campaign. And then this attack took place where all sorts of brutal details were coming out of just the nature of the attack. India immediately pointed the finger of blame on Pakistan and said that Pakistan was behind these attacks and this particular terrorist attack in Pahalgam. Of course, for years, India has accused Pakistan of supporting, funding, sheltering, aiding and abetting, as well as giving sanctuary to different terrorist organizations, namely Lashkar-e-Taiba. And a splinter group of Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Resistance Front, claimed responsibility for this terrorist attack. Pakistan distanced themselves from it entirely and said they didn't know why they were being blamed for this attack. They had nothing to do with it, that yes, they once may have supported terrorist organizations and used them as proxies, but that is no longer the case. In fact, Gillian, on my program just a few days ago, I interviewed Pakistan's defense minister, who admitted that Pakistan had a policy of funding and backing terrorist organizations. But he said, we no longer do this, and Lashkar-e-Taiba doesn't exist. Now, of course, India didn't buy that argument, and the Pakistan Intelligence Agency, the ISI, said that they had received information that India was planning to attack Pakistan. And as you say, this evening, just in the last half an hour or so, we received information that 3 locations had been attacked. That was according to the Pakistani military. The Indian armed forces put out a statement saying that they had carried out Operation Sindoor, which was what they say precision strikes at terrorist camps. And they said altogether 9 sites had been targeted.
Yalda, we're just hearing via the news wire, Reuters, that the Pakistan Defence Minister is saying that India's claim of targeting terrorist camps is false. They're also saying that civilian sites, all targets hit are civilian spots and not militant camps, which is what we've heard from India.
That's right. As you say, India, in its statement, has said that their actions have been focused, measured, that no Pakistani military facilities have been targeted, and that India has demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and methods of execution. They put out a statement on X saying justice has been served. After that, we received statements from the Pakistani side saying that a child had been killed and some civilians had been injured. Reuters news agency was also reporting that a seminary had been attacked. Now, in these early moments since these strikes took place, we are still in the fog of war. And so no doubt there will be an attempt to muddy the waters. And so we are hearing statements like, that there weren't, they were civilian targets that were hit or civilians were killed. We'll have to wait and see until there is more information that comes out. We are only about half an hour since those attacks were launched on sites, India says, on the Pakistan-controlled Kashmir, as well as within Pakistan. They have targeted 9 sites in total.
Yalda, for the moment, thank you. Let's go straight to New Delhi now, and our correspondent there, Neville Lazarus. Neville, the Pakistani Defence Minister saying that India fired missiles from its own airspace.
That's correct. It's also very significant because in 2019, when India did some surgical strikes, what it called, it also then entered Air Force airspace of Pakistan, in which one of its fighter jets were shot down. Its pilot was captured. Too much embarrassment for India out here. It also escalated into a huge tension between the two countries. Now, this time, obviously, we've not heard of Indian fighter jets entering airspace. This has been done by missile attacks, according to the Indian Defence Ministry. And what we have heard from our person in Pakistan saying 5 places have been attacked, though the Indian press release has said it's been 9 spots have been hit. These 5 places, according to our colleague in Pakistan, is in the Sialkot, Bawalpur, and Muzaffarabad sectors. We don't know what it is, what they have hit, according to Indian government. So the government, it says it has hit. It has been very precision and targeted militant organizations and launch pads, which was a similar thing that they did in 2019 when they hit a place called Balakot, which is about 40 kilometers north of Muzaffarabad in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And what India claims that it hit some of the Lashkar-e-Toiba launch pads and a seminary out there. Well, we didn't have too much of evidence of that, but nevertheless, this attack, which took place on the 22nd of April in Kashmir, where 26 people were killed, 26 of them in a tourist spot, has been one of the worst of its kind. Earlier, tourists were always spared; they were not being targeted, but this time they were specifically being targeted. And since then, there's been an uproar in India. There has been a sort of a move of some sort of punishment, retribution for these horrendous attacks that took place on the 22nd of April against civilians, against tourists. And India, we've heard it from the highest authorities. Prime Minister Modi saying very publicly, not once but several times, that India will punish the perpetrators of this attack and also the backers. And they believe there has been a linkage with Pakistan-based terrorist groups, the Lashkar-e-Toiba. A proxy of it had taken responsibility for this attack on the tourists. and we've seen a culmination of what has been going on for the last 12, 15 days in India, the sort of tensions building up. Tomorrow, India was conducting mock drills throughout the country. Almost 225 districts across the country would be conducting mock drills of any sort of retaliatory attacks on India, and you have the civil and military departments coming together to do mock drills across the country. Tomorrow, also in the night, the Indian Air Force had put out a statement saying they will be conducting war drills in Rajasthan along the international border, which will go on for at least 48 hours. Now, all this has been building up, and there is a sort of a move out there. The mood in the country was of some sort of retribution, some sort of punishment that needed to come by from the Indian government, and Prime Minister Modi has several times talked about this over the last fortnight, and we've seen what has taken place now. We don't know how far this will go, because we are talking about two nuclear-armed neighbors who have fought several wars and skirmishes in over Kashmir, with hostilities against each other. The diplomatic
Neville, sorry to stop you there, but we're just getting some breaking news in, and we knew that Pakistan was saying that they would retaliate. We're now hearing via the Reuters news agency that there's intense shelling between India and Pakistan, between their troops, at 3 places across the frontier in Kashmir. This is according to witnesses in this statement from the police. So that retaliation seemingly has already begun.
That's true. There has been small arms fire between the two militaries since the attack on the 22nd of April. From the 23rd onwards, we've heard along this 740-odd kilometer border, the line of control between India and Pakistan, the soldiers, there has been a continuous sort of tit-for-tat, small arms fire. Now, we don't know the message that you just read out. I don't know how big these firings have, what kind of guns have been used, or what kind of military hardware has been used in this instance. But there has been small arms fire right throughout since the attack on the 22nd of April. And we've seen this in the past. In 2019, when there was this attack on a convoy of Indian paramilitary soldiers in a place called Pulwama by a suicide bomber who rammed his car into this convoy, killing 40 people, and then a retaliatory surgical strikes which India conducted across the border on Balakot.
Neville, we're just hearing from Donald Trump. I think we have a clip of what he's had to say.
Is there any reaction to the attacks between India and Pakistan?
No, it's a shame. We just heard about it just as we were walking in the doors of the Oval. Just heard about it. I guess people knew something was going to happen based on a little bit of the past. They've been fighting for a long time. They've been fighting for many, many decades.
Any message to
and centuries, actually, if you really think about it. No, I just hope it ends very quickly.
Mr. President, are you considering adding a stop in Israel during next week's trip to the Middle East? And also, what's your reaction to Israel's plan to reoccupy Gaza if there is no ceasefire deal?
Well, the plan we haven't talked about, but we're not planning on stopping.
We'll leave that news conference there with Donald Trump. Neville Lazarus still with us in New Delhi. We heard the president there saying it's a shame. We just heard about the India strikes against Pakistan. People knew something was going to happen. Hope it ends very quickly is what he had to say. He is certainly right about the fact that this had been bubbling for some time and there was potentially going to be a strike in the offing.
That's true. I mean, we had a 4-day official visit of his vice president, Vance, in India on on the Monday, and on Tuesday, the very next day, there was this attack on the tourist, killing 26 people there. Now, the vice president met Prime Minister Modi on the Monday night. Prime Minister Modi had to go on an official visit to Saudi Arabia for 2 days, but after the attack, while the vice president was in India, he was with his family. He was going to visit the Taj Mahal. He was in Jaipur when this attack took place. And before leaving 2 days later on Thursday, he did say that he hopes that the tensions between the two countries subside and it doesn't become escalatory. But almost immediately when the attack took place in the afternoon of the Tuesday of the 22nd, pretty much soon there was a tweet on X by President Trump talking about this attack. So he was obviously briefed by his vice president of this horrendous attack. And Prime Minister Modi had met the leaders of Saudi Arabia. He cut short his visit by 1 day, came back that night, and has been speaking to all world leaders and putting forward the case of India with them.
Neville, thank you very much for the moment, but stay right where you are. We're going to bring in Shashank Joshi now, defence editor for The Economist. Thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. Your thoughts on what was highly expected?
This was expected. I think what's interesting about this is that in some respects, it's quite extensive. India says it has hit 9 sites. Back in 2019, in the Balakot attacks, which your correspondents have been discussing in the last hour or so, India hit 1 site, a singles facility. So this is a much bigger attack. What's also notable here is that this covers not just disputed territory that India claims as its own in Pakistan administered Kashmir, as it's known, but also notably in Punjab province, which is undisputed Pakistan territory. So India has struck what even India itself acknowledges is undisputed sovereign Pakistani territory. The other interesting thing about this that stands out to me is the method of attack. Pakistan's army says that this missile strike took place without any Indian planes entering Pakistani airspace. That's interesting. That suggests the Indians have used some kind of standoff missile fired from Indian airspace, and that would be the first time they've done that, as far as I can tell. So that's another novel and significant element. And the last thing, of course, is that the Indians are clearly striking a de-escalatory note. They're saying they didn't hit the Pakistan army, which they blame for sponsoring these terrorist attacks, and they didn't hit Pakistani bases. They just hit what they claim are terrorist camps. And again, that is an Indian message that is saying, we are sort of drawing a line under it here. We don't plan on taking this any further. But of course, I think a Pakistani retaliation is pretty much inevitable.
Yes, well, we've heard from Narendra Modi saying that justice has been served on those 9 targets that have been hit. But for all the reasons you mentioned a short while ago, is this an escalation, a significant escalation in your estimation?
Of course, it's an escalation because India did not conduct airstrikes on Pakistan until 2019. In 2016, it did conduct a special forces raid against Pakistan in retaliation for one of these terrorist atrocities on Indian soil, but it didn't conduct airstrikes. So the 2019 airstrikes and this airstrike of the last couple of hours, these are the first aerial attacks on Pakistan since the 1971 war between India and Pakistan. That is a major escalation. But of course, what the Indian side will claim is that they are also facing a fairly significant escalation in the nature of this attack. The attack on Pahalgam in Kashmir was the biggest attack on civilians in Kashmir for 25 years. I think it was the biggest attack on civilians anywhere in India since the Mumbai attacks of 2008. And so there was a clamor within India to avenge that attack and I suppose what they would call restored deterrence against Pakistan. So it is an escalation. escalation, but I think it's part of a broader pattern of escalations that we have been seeing since April 22nd.
And how will this be received by the public in India? Will there calls for retaliation? Will those have been served by this attack?
Yes. I think there will be broad support for this effort. It will prompt a great deal of, I think, jubilation, you might see. That's what happened in 2019. And I think that's important to understand. This is bipartisan in India. The leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, was called into the government, I think, just a day ago. He will probably have been briefed on elements of this response. And I think you'll see significant cross-party support in India for this course of action. I think the real test will come when we see a Pakistani response, and I would anticipate a response in kind. Then what does the Indian government then do? Does it then further escalate, or does it allow the matter to settle? And I think that's going to be the next big juncture of this crisis in the next day or so.
We have seen reported on Reuters, the news wires, some return fire between Pakistan and Indian troops on the border. Would that constitute retaliation, or is that part of the ongoing skirmishes that have been taking place?
That's really part of the ongoing skirmishes. There was a ceasefire on the line of control for a while that was broken in the last 2 weeks considerably. I expect cross-border shell fire will intensify even more. It has been for the last week, but I don't think that that will satisfy the Pakistani public or the Pakistani army, who will say, actually, it is important to respond in the same currency, much as we did in 2019 when we conducted reciprocal airstrikes against India. I think that is the kind of message you will see within Pakistan. I just don't think shelling or that kind of thing is going to cut it in these rather febrile situations where people will feel this is a pretty major attack.
The Indian government have said in a statement, our actions, as we've mentioned, have been focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. No Pakistani military facilities have been targeted. India has demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and method of execution. But Pakistan security saying tonight that at least one child has been killed and 2 injured near Bahawalpur.
Well, it's impossible to judge these claims until we see some more evidence. The Pakistan's army claims that India struck a mosque in Bahawalpur. The area, Punjab province, in that area, Punjab province, has an association with Lashkar-e-Taiba, the group that India claims conducted the Pahalgam attack. But we really can't assess the claims on either side. The Indian claim that this was a terrorist training camp. The Pakistani claim that this was a mosque. I think we just have to wait for more evidence here. It's a really murky situation, and I'd be very wary of drawing any firm conclusions at this early stage. It's the middle of the night in India and Pakistan. We only have a few fragmentary social media images to go on. The Pakistan army obviously has a vested interest, so I'd be very careful indeed.
Shashank Joshi, defence editor for The Economist, thank you very much for speaking to us. These are the latest pictures that we have from inside Kashmir that you see on your screen. This is the scene of one of those attacks that has taken place. Obviously, you can see the devastation there caused by whatever missile landed. Neville Lazarus is in New Delhi for us. Neville, I'm not sure if you can see the pictures on screen at the moment, but this is the aftermath of the attack in Kashmir, the latest pictures that we see of some sort of explosion and the devastation to the building.
That's right. Yes, I can see these pictures now. We really don't know whether this is where this is in which part of a inhabitant, whether it's crowded or it's just an isolated house. But nevertheless, there has been damage. This is one of the first pictures that we're seeing of this attack. Now, in 2019, we didn't really see very much of these kind of pictures when the attack happened in Balakot. The Pakistan military, the DGISPR, had sent out just a few videos of trees which were hit in which looked like a meadow or a part of a jungle, which fallen trees and damaged trees, saying that this is what the Indian strike, the surgical strike, had hit, discarding the fact that what India had said, that it had hit terrorist training camps, a seminary where the terrorists had gathered, and a house which housed a lot of these terrorists. Now, it's very, very difficult, as Shashank was saying, that very difficult to actually confirm anything of this kind. But nevertheless, India has taken that step forward now, and we're talking about two nuclear-armed neighbors with hostilities of decades of hostilities between each other. There's a huge trust deficit. India has obviously gone through a lot of diplomatic offensive in this whole since the attack on the 22nd on the tourist place in Pahalgam. There was a tit for tat that's been retaliated, diplomatic sort of tit for tat from Pakistan. But where it goes from now, really no one knows. I mean, both sides have almost kitted themselves to a certain way of confronting each other on the line of control. As you mentioned, there has been shelling, intense firing and shelling across the LOC in the last few moments. But from here onwards, how far this will go and how much international pressure is going to be put on both sides. We've seen the Americans speaking to the Indian diplomats in the last few weeks since the attack happened. As I mentioned, the vice president was in India when this took place. He surely would have pressed on the Indian side of restraint. There has been, from the Gulf countries, there have been talks between the high diplomatic, the ministers out here, the foreign minister. They have been speaking to various other people. Yes, 2 days ago, we had the Japanese defense minister meeting his Indian counterpart, but also talking about restraint. So now what takes place between the two nuclear-armed neighbors from now on, the escalation will depend on what further from Pakistan's side. Obviously, there has been an attack on them, as Shashank mentioned. It's not only just the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir area, the disputed part, but also the sort of mainland of Pakistan, which has been hit, according to the Pakistani ISPR, the DGISPR, which is the military publicity wing of Pakistan, saying that certain other sectors of Pakistan in Sialkot, Bawalpur were also hit. But out here in India, we had been waiting that there is some sort of retaliation to those horrendous attacks on the 22nd. There will be some sort of retaliation coming from this side. And we've seen it happen tonight.
Yes, Neville, we're just seeing that a statement from Pakistani security forces saying that India carried out this cowardly assault under the cover of night, deliberately targeting innocent Pakistani civilians. There is no scenario, is there, in which Pakistan will not retaliate?
It's unlikely. There has been a lot of the tensions have built up in Pakistan as well. There has been, where a sort of a mood has been created that if India conducts any sort of military offensive, there will be retaliation. We've heard it from Defense Minister of Pakistan on Yalda show a few last week, where he talked about immediate retaliation by the Pakistani military, and how the Pakistani military has been given a free hand to do what they want to, and India should not try and do any military incursion or any sort of military operations on Pakistani soil. Now, both sides, the leaders of both countries, have been making several public statements to this effect that there will be, at least from India's side, there will be retribution, punishment for the attacks and on terror organizations, because they have been allowed to have a free run in Pakistan. Pakistan denies these allegations, but nevertheless, it is very difficult to now come back. Both sides will have to show their domestic audience and their of what they have done and what they can do. So we will expect, I think, in the next few hours or days, of some sort of retaliation from Pakistan.
Well, the Pakistan Prime Minister Sharif is saying that Pakistan is responding to Indian attacks. Thank you very much for the moment, Neville. Well, let's just remind you of the details of the breaking news this hour, that India says it has struck 9 targets in Pakistan and in the disputed region of Kashmir. At least 3 people are reported to have died. India's Ministry of Defence says it targeted militants it blames for an attack in Kashmir in which 26 people were killed last month. Indian officials have stressed that no Pakistani military facilities were targeted. But Pakistan's Prime Minister says his country is now responding to India's attacks. There have been reports in the last half hour of Indian and Pakistani troop shelling each other at 3 locations along the frontier in Kashmir. Neville, let's return to him in New Delhi. You have some more breaking news for us.
Well, we've just heard from AP News Services that the Pakistan has said that they have shot down 2 Indian jets. Now, we don't know, we cannot confirm this at the moment, but it won't be, like 2019, when Indian fighter jets had entered the airspace of Pakistan into in sort of a dogfight which took place, and one of the jets was shot down. The Indian pilot was captured. To a lot of embarrassment to the Indian government, because he was obviously made a showcase by Pakistan. They paraded him. They brought out pictures, a video of him, a sort of interrogation of him. And after quite a few days, after lots of negotiations between the 2 sides, he was returned, and that return was also broadcast across Pakistan and across this region to show of what had happened. Now, we don't know of these recent, these 2 planes being shot down, because it's coming from the Ministry of Defence from Pakistan. Let's wait and see what actually happened, what has happened. That at the moment, there hasn't been any statement from the Indian side. And I presume they won't speak about it if this is true for some time. But nevertheless, it is not impossible that there would be incursions into Pakistani airspace by Indians, because it's happened in the past, in the 2019 attack on Balakot. Now, we have seen. Just this evening, there was the Indian Air Force had put out a statement that they are conducting war games in Rajasthan, in the state of Rajasthan, which borders Pakistan further south of Kashmir. And these war games were to begin later tomorrow at about 9 o'clock at night, which will go on till Friday, early morning at 3 o'clock on Friday. Now, these were what the Indian Air Force has said, that these were just drills being conducted along the international border in Rajasthan, quite far away from where where these recent attacks have taken place in Kashmir. But nevertheless, there has been a lot of tensions between the 2 countries, and we are seeing it play out now in various shapes and forms. Tomorrow, that's Wednesday, almost half of the country's districts were going to go through a sort of a mock drill of which happened 54 years ago for the first time in 1971, where mock drills were conducted when India and Pakistan went to war in 1971. Since then, that's taken 54 years since then. The administration out here is going to conduct these mock drills with people in cities, in markets, in schools, at installations, at infrastructure, large infrastructure projects, power stations, etc. Mock drills will be taking place later at about 1600 hours tomorrow